Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was gonna. No, he blew it. Now he blew the punchline, right? So I was gonna say, when you've been around the industry as long as I have, you get many rewards, and one of the finest rewards I ever got were my UNT Converse. Now, they used to call them Chuck Taylors in my day, right? But I renamed them to Brian Taylors. So that's what they are. They're my Brian Taylors, and I don't play any better basketball with them than I did with the Chucks. I have some old swag here with you. Believe it or not, it's our old logo on it, but I have some hats in here and tons of koozies. And you're all welcome to come and just take whatever you want. I don't want to take the box home with me. So please, everybody, take one or two or take as many as you want. If you're the last one, take the whole box and whatever else is in there. I appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for allowing us to come in and speak with you all. I have a couple familiar faces in here. I also mentor in the PLP program. Nick Epperson's here with us tonight. He's my very first mentee. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for coming. At least I know somebody will like me here anyway. But Ruben, could you click me? I'm sorry, I didn't take the clicker off of Justin. So this is me. In case I don't look familiar to anybody here, uh, just a little background on my history and how I started in logistics. I'm going to give a little background on our company, and then I'm going to turning it over to my emerging star, Justin White. So when he comes on, he has a lot more pertinent information for you, because I know you guys are probably tired of listening to old white-haired guys. So without further ado, I graduated from Kent State University, and for those of you who don't know about Kent State, it is in northeastern Ohio, and it's very cold and dark and dreary up there. So as soon as I graduated from there, I moved to Texas, didn't hesitate. But I graduated back in 1979 with a degree in industrial technology. And at the time, that was more geared towards manufacturing, supporting the auto industry. They had presses, lathes, designs. CAD was just coming out then on the computers, but we used to have to punch cards to do the CAD layout. So that's how long it's been around, or I've been around that. Anyway, I segued from the manufacturing side of it when I moved to Texas out of a need, because it was the only company that offered me a job at the time, and that was as a production planner at a little company in Addison. Um, Spent about a year and a half there, and I worked for Abbott Laboratories. And back then, before they called it logistics, they called it materials management. So I kind of worked my way through Abbott Laboratories as a public warehouse manager, a warehouse manager, an office manager, and then I was promoted to distribution manager. Took a little hiatus in between Abbott and where I'm at now as a director of technology for a company that wrote warehouse management software. Uh, just converted from the old AS400 platform to a Windows platform. So I spent a year there, and a couple of my acquaintances that I knew from Abbott had started technical transportation up, and they asked me to come over and run the company. Um, and I said, sure, I'd love to do that, but you have to tell me what, like how much you're going to pay me, what's my title? And they said, well, you're going to be president. And I go, really? And they go, yeah, yeah, I think you could do it. Well, I got into this, and it really wasn't unfamiliar to me, because we had actually started the concept for technical transportation. Ruben, if you could switch for me. Um, we'll get on to Justin later, but yeah. Started with technical transportation back in 1997. But the concept for technical transportation was actually um, developed when we worked over at Abbott Laboratories. We made huge diagnostic blood analyzers, um, other urinalysis type centrifuge diagnostic equipment. And at the time, one of our instruments and the reagents that we made to go mix with the centrifuges, completely happenstance, but the reagent performed tests on the AIDS virus back in the early mid 80s, when that was a pandemic at the time. And we could not place them fast enough. And what we ended up doing was finding out that we'd ship these things out. They'd get out to a destination city, and then they would sit on a dock somewhere, or they'd sit at a truck terminal. And we had people like salespeople, training people, field service people that would be sitting in hotel rooms waiting for the arrival. We figured a per diem charge for them was close to about $1,000 a day when those things weren't running. If you put in travel, eating, hotel, etc. So we had to develop a process that we could predict the transit time from the day of shipping to delivery in a destination city, and then time it with a crew that would be able to take the product or instrument to the facility, and then give notification a couple days ahead of time so that they could dispatch a field service person or a salesperson or a training person to train the customer on it when it was set up. So we took it a little bit further. We started assisting on the delivery inside, and then we started doing some of this setup for them so that when they came in, all they had to do was train the customer. So that's how the concept started. And we kind of developed the concept since I've been there to much larger instruments with a lot more intricate type of deliveries, 4 men, 6 men, 8 men, inside unpack, debris removal, and assisting the site or the salespersons with that setup. We took it a little bit further with a couple of other customers, and we're actually doing the full total configuration and hand over to the customer now. So we're continually adding value added type of services for two reasons. Number one, we could charge more money for that delivery, but number two, we kind of hook our concept and our customers into our service levels, so it's very hard for them to leave. So as a result, we have had our original customer, which was Abbott Laboratories, still a customer of ours today. Uh, our top 10 customers have been with us at least from 1997 or before. So we have a good retention on our customer base. Of course, we're shipping for all the major medical manufacturers: Siemens Healthcare, Abbott Laboratories, Carl Zeiss, companies like that. We're not in everybody's shipper. We do specialize in high value equipment, something that needs an additional touch, an additional service. So that's how we developed the company. That's how we developed the processes. I would tell you that we have gotten a lot stronger over the last 4 or 5 years when I brought in the initiative to accentuate a quality department within our organization. And I hired a girl from UNT, graduate student, and she took over the quality department unbeknownst to her when we hired her. And in 3 short years, she was able to take us from a handwritten, internal developed quality system to becoming ISO certified a year ago. And she just took us through the recertification back in February. And we are now 2 years in with ISO certification. And our quality numbers continue to go up, our service levels continue to go up, and it makes things easier for guys like Justin over there to sell. So with that, I'll just give you a very general description of what we do. I'm going to let Justin jump into the presentation at this point, and he's going to give you guys a little bit different flavor. I've been around for several years in the professional capacity since 1979. I could tell you guys stories all day long. As a matter of fact, if anybody wants to ask me about it after the meeting, we're going to be upstairs in a room somewhere, right, Ruben? In the atrium, okay. And we'll be there to chat, but I could share stories with you as long as it's nothing personal. But anyway, with that said, I really enjoy telling those type of stories. But you guys don't understand a lot of it because you're not out there and you haven't experienced it yet. Justin is a graduate of technical transportation, Texas Tech. He's a guns upper. He's one of our outsiders. We try to hire within UNT, but we've hired a few external ones. He's got a degree in logistics from Texas Tech, and we kind of started with a concept for developing salespeople because most of our salespeople were my age, getting ready to retire, and we understood we had a need to start building our sales force so that we can easily plug and play when these guys started retiring. As it turned out, two of them did retire, but we hired Justin and another gentleman as sales specialists, and they took on the responsibility of assisting sales presentations, running data numbers for statistics and analysis to see how our routes were running, where we were delivering to, what kind of geographical support that we had with carriers out in the network. So Justin spent almost 2.5 years as the sales specialist, and just last June, was it? July, that he converted to full-time sales, and he's working under one of our VP of national accounts. So with that said, Justin, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you take it from there.
Thank you. If you just want to go to if you don't mind clicking for me, I'm gonna have two hands unavailable. Can you just go to the preparing for graduation and beyond?
How much forward is that?
Not too much. Keep going a little bit more, a little bit more. There we go. And you can go to the next one. Thank you, Lynn. My name's Justin White. As he said, I went to Texas Tech University out in West Texas. But I've been with the company for just over about 3 years. Started as strategic sales specialist and then went to national account sales. But I kind of want to take you guys through my journey and the experience of going through the job search, kind of what the process was, the challenges that I had, and then the interview process, why I chose sales, why I chose tech trans, and then get into real world lessons, adjustments I had to make, early mistakes I made, skills I developed, transitioning to full-time sales, and then kind of what finally clicked for me. And then I want to share a real world example of kind of a case study of one of my current customers, kind of from, prospecting, finding the lead, and then to closing the deal. So you can go to the next one. So with the job search, just kind of, what I wish I had known beforehand. Before graduation, everyone is scrambling. You're not alone. The pressure to secure a career is normal. Just know that you still have time. If it doesn't work out the first time with your first job, there's going to be plenty more opportunities, and you have plenty of time. Don't overthink the interview process. Think of it as a conversation just between two people just trying to get to know each other. I'll get into it a little bit later, but think of it as a conversation, not an interrogation. Just remember that companies mainly look for people that work hard, are responsible, work well with others, and take pride in the work that they do. And so that doesn't mean that you need every certification or all the right answers. As long as you be yourself and ask questions, and stay curious, you'll be better off. You can go to the next one. So kind of my experience going through the job search process, I began applying in August of my last semester. I graduated in the fall. I focused on logistics related companies as that's what I was interested in. And we had many career fairs at Tech, and so I attended many of those, which you know exposed me to the industry and the landscape of all the companies. And from those career fairs, I was able to schedule many interviews with those companies, and I used that networking and obviously, created LinkedIn's and stuff to learn more about those companies and opportunities. And the cliche is, people say it's about who you know, not what you know, but I really think it's about all you know. It's about what you know, it's about who you know, it's about how you know it, it's about why you know it, it's about everything. You can go to the next one. And some of the challenges that I faced, and the main one really being is I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do or what role I wanted to play coming out of college. And so kind of how I solved that was I stopped focusing on the actual job titles. I focused more on the actual companies themselves and what their culture was, how was their turnover, was there growth potential within that company. I look for the companies that invest in their employees and in their people. I believe that if I found the right company, that I would find the right role within it. And this will kind of be a common theme throughout this presentation, but I prioritize long-term opportunity over the short-term salary. There's coming out of college, there's lots of companies that will, you know, give you a number for a salary and you think that's great, but there's not a lot of growth within that company. I would really prioritize the long-term growth over that short-term salary. And the next. And then kind of just getting into the interview process. So I interviewed with about 6 to 8 different companies, and I used each interview to learn more and more about what I wanted to do. I focused on the companies with the long-term fit. And what I learned from my first interview is that, I stressed way too much beforehand, which is normal. But I thought I needed all the perfect and rehearsed answers, which is good to have, but that's not a necessity. I realized, like I said, that most companies are just wanting to know, are you responsible? Do you work hard? Do you work well in a team? And do you take pride in what you do? And like I said earlier, interviews are conversations, not interrogations. The next. And then kind of, why I chose sales. I always just thought that I connected well with people, growing up, I like to be social, make friends, build relationships. Um, you know, and that's what sales kind of allows you to do, and not just complete tasks. Now, while you still do complete tasks, you can still travel, get to meet people, build those relationships, which is really nice being a part of sales. And every day is different. There's new clients, new challenges, new opportunities, which, gives some variability in the job, which is really nice. And then sales rewards performance. Your effort directly impacts your income, which is really nice because, the more motivated and driven you are and the harder you work, with really any job, the more income you're going to get. But especially sales, if you're not motivated and driven, you're probably not going to do that well in sales. Um, but so that's why it kind of aligned with my strengths and my personality, which is why I went into sales. And then why I chose tech trans. So I got the opportunity through someone I knew, which was nice because there was a familiar face, which makes that transition easier coming out of college into the workplace. Um, and the role was brand new, which was really nice, that strategic sales role. So I got to shape it, you got to set the expectations, and kind of got to build something from the ground up, which is people coming out of college don't really get that opportunity that much, which is really interesting to me, and I thought was pretty cool. Tech Trends also had a very low turnover, meaning that the people that were there back in the 90s when it started, a lot of them are still there today, which is really uncommon with companies, and I thought was really interesting. And that makes me think that I could be there for a long time. Kind of going to the next point, I saw myself being part of that next generation of tech trans and hopefully being able to fulfill a leadership role within the company. And then, that long-term opportunity, stability and growth is the ideal, early career environment for someone just coming out of college. The ability to grow with the company, make an early impact. And I just felt like it was a place that I could build a career and not just take a normal job. And then kind of getting into those real world lessons, adjustments that I had to make in the workplace. Obviously, I had to, learn how to communicate professionally, especially with the customers and clients that I was working with. Had to manage my time wisely and prioritize tasks. I start every morning by making a daily agenda. They say that the first thing to getting something done is to write it down, which I take very seriously, and it works. Um, but definitely the toughest adjustment for me was building the confidence. Especially coming right out of college and working with people that were, for the most part, a lot older than me. And the customers I was working with were in higher positions and older than me. I used to think that, these people know way more than I do. How am I going to tell them, what to buy or whatnot? But that confidence came from doing what was uncomfortable and putting yourself out there and just diving straight in. So the more I put myself in those challenging situations, the faster and more that I grew as a salesman. And then skills that I developed quickly and skills that I have not developed so quickly. The quicker ones were, like Lynn said, the reporting and analytics. Things like, tools like Excel, Power BI, Zoom Info. But definitely the major one is definitely Excel. And in any role in business, Excel is going to be used. And so I would highly recommend getting proficient in that, as that will, get you a faster head start within any role that you go to. I learned how to build, interpret, and present those reports efficiently, which made me better off as a salesman. And then the ones that took or are taking longer to develop, are what we call the sales tool bag. Identifying what the customer's problems actually are, asking the right questions at the right time, providing the solutions that actually help the customer. Logistics has many moving parts. So experience to me is, the only real teacher. But you can do, the online sales courses and everything, which are great, and they help me a lot. But I think getting the real world reps helps a lot more. And then some mistakes that I made early on, I would say the biggest mistake, which I know it's kind of cliche, but not asking enough questions. I thought that I needed to figure everything out on my own, because I was worried that, my coworkers would probably not think that I'm smart enough. Well, newsflash is they already know that you're not smart enough because you're just coming out of college. So the reality is asking those questions would have, helped me and saved time and stress. And so what matters the most is, getting those answers that you need to do the job well. And then transitioning into full-time sales, some of those toughest challenges, the typical ones, being held to a monthly quota, knowing that there are consequences for not hitting your marks or hitting those numbers. But it's nice because that pressure becomes real, and it motivates you to hit those numbers. Like I said, you have to be motivated, you have to be driven in sales. And then, learning how to balance those performance expectations with personal growth. And then what finally clicked for me is that you must always have prospects in the pipeline. Tools like Zoom Info I mentioned earlier, where you can have automated email sequences that help you reach hundreds of prospects daily without you having to lift a finger. Um, Someone you talked to 2 years ago who at the time, didn't need your service might come back today because they saw an email from you with your logo and they're like, hey, now I need this service. Um, and so that's why consistency is everything in sales. And I know that if I work hard and follow the process, that the results will follow. And so now I kind of want to share that case study with one of my current customers, Vero Biotech. I'll kind of go through the stages. This first one being, prospecting and finding the lead. Some of the tools and methods that I use, the typical ones like cold calling, email outreach, just doing as much research as I can about the company. And then sometimes you just get lucky. Sometimes they call you, which those ones are a lot easier. But Zoom Info specifically with Vero is what I used, and it's one of my most valuable prospecting tools. It does a lot of cool things to where it can show me the companies that actually visit our website. I can see how many contacts from that company viewed it, how many or what different pages they actually viewed, and we can track what are called intent topics. So, say one of you guys are on your computer and you're searching white glove delivery and you work for one of the companies that we're targeting. I can actually see that in a list. So, I can see that Abbott was, researching white glove delivery or 3PLs or last mile delivery, which really helps me narrow down those high quality prospects. ZoomInfo also allows me to build those automated email sequences to where I can tailor a specific, email templates to that company once I know, what products they have, any information on their website, what are their pain points. I can tailor those emails directly, specific to that customer. I mean, and I can set them on a schedule to where I can set it up and then I won't have to touch it for 3 months. But how I found Vero was I saw they visited our website. I saw they were researching for a third-party logistics provider. And so what I did was created a targeted email sequence toward that company and basically put as many contacts as I could that I felt would be, relatable to it. Um, and then started the sequence. And then sure enough, a few days later, they come back to me and we scheduled the first meeting. You can go next. And then the next stage is identifying the opportunity. So this is when that first meeting, that discovery call comes in. And the main goal of that discovery call is to let the customer talk. You don't want to overtake the meeting. You want to let them talk so you can identify the pain points, any inefficiencies they have or unmet needs. And so just a little bit about Vero before I get into it. They are a manufacturer of nitric dioxide delivery systems. So basically what that means is, if you're sick or having respiratory issues or bad health, whatever it is, and need to go to the hospital, they'll hook you up to one of these machines and it gives you that NO2 to basically boost your immune system. But once we were on that call, I found that the need was they needed a, full white glove delivery partner. And they have some deliveries that required strict time constraints, which that was their main pain point. They're what are called surge deliveries. So what we had to do was be able to deliver their equipment within 2 hours plus drive time anywhere in the country, which is something that Tech Trends had never done before. At least I'm not familiar with. So I realized that we needed to build a, completely customizable new process for this customer. And so kind of that key insight there is the opportunity wasn't just to provide a service, it was to design a custom nationwide delivery model. Then the next stage is kind of, presenting that solution to the customer. So what was our challenge? It was how can we deliver this equipment within 2 hours plus drive time anywhere in the country? So our strategy was, build a national hub network. So we established Vero Biotech inventory hubs all across the country in major metro areas. We positioned that inventory close to their customers. That way that we could reduce the response time to fulfill those surge deliveries. And how we determine those locations is we ask Vero for their, customer data, where are they located, and then map those locations using one of those tools I mentioned earlier, Power BI. That way we could actually visualize it and see where the high concentration areas are for their customers. And then based off that, that's where we decided to put the hubs. Um, Kind of examples of that, we did 15 total. Cities like Los Angeles, Phoenix, Chicago, Louisville, Tampa, Philly, um, major areas like that. But the outcome was we now have a scalable nationwide model capable of fulfilling those surge deliveries. And then finally closing the deal. So after using their customer data and some of our internal data to build that solution into a vision, we built a visual report showing the hub coverage, the delivery timelines, the expected performance, and just the overall process flow. And this is why reporting matters because it helps the customer actually see and visualize the solution. It builds trust between you and the customer, and it shows that you are professional and prepared to give this solution to them. and it makes the process feel real and achievable to them. And so kind of the final steps in there is obviously, we presented the solution to Vero. We answered any questions and refined the plan. It takes time. The sales cycle isn't just 1 week. It typically takes 3 to 6 to, months to a year. But once we earned their approval, we began to implement that hub network. And the result is, Vero Biotech now became a TechTrans customer, and it was one of my first full sales cycle wins. And so kind of the core insights from that case study, kind of the key takeaways are prospecting tools are powerful when used strategically. The discovery call is about listening. So let the customer talk. Do not overtake the meeting. That way you can identify the pain points. And then custom solutions win deals, not your generic pitches. Customers will always prefer the custom solution that is specific to their company. And then reporting and visualization that builds customer confidence so they can actually visualize the solution. And then you don't need all the answers on day one. Like I said, the sales cycle is long. You learn more and more about the company. That way you can refine the process. And then you grow by taking on talent challenges that you've never faced before. Like I said, TechTrans has never done this before. So now we have a process in place to where if another opportunity comes at us like this, we're confident in saying we know that we can do this. And then just kind of some key takeaways, points to remember, just for the overall presentation is you don't need everything figured out right away. You have time. If, like I said, if you don't figure it out the first time, you'll have plenty of opportunities. And then focus on finding the right company, not the perfect job title. Ask questions, stay curious, don't fear being uncomfortable, put yourself out there. That's the only way you're going to grow. And then build relationships. They matter way more than you think. And then finally, just to end it off, just remember that your career is a marathon, not a sprint. I'll hand it back over to Lynn. Thank you, guys.
Do any of you have any questions for Justin? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was one thing that we had never done before. So, like, whenever we initially found the opportunity, it's, we need to complete these deliveries within a specific time from the initial order request. And me being at the company and new, I didn't know if that was something that we could do. So, as a typical salesman, we say, yes, we can. But then you kind of figure it out. And once you actually figure that solution out, that's where that confidence kind of comes from. Yeah. Sorry, say that again. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, I mean, the first couple probably didn't go as well as I thought they did. It's just doing more and more. And, it's one of those things to where, like I said, the more and more you do it, the more confident you come with it. And, um, the first one I had was stressful. But by the time I was doing my fifth or sixth interview, it felt just like a conversation, not like I was being interrogated from the people across the table. So it's just doing more and more of it. Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Once y'all find out, but that's why I was kind of like, oh, bring up with that plan. Because like I guess I'm wondering like how much of it with you or like are there people who like you relay that to them and they figure it out and then let you know or
Well, so it's kind of a team effort. So at TechTrans, we're familiar with the delivery hub model, so we already know that we can inventory their equipment in different locations around the country, but it's making sure that those what we call TSPs, are TechTrans service providers that actually make the deliveries. It's making sure that they're on board and agree to do those deliveries. But it's a team effort, sales, operations, quality gets involved to where if there's agreements that need to be made with those TSPs. But it's a team effort to build those hub models.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit more on that question, um, when Justin says teamwork, um, what he means is he's in sales. He gets the opportunity presented to him, and although he's good at what he does, he doesn't sign the bottom line. I have to put my name on the contract. So before that happens, he actually goes to our operations team. Now, our operations team consists of uh, managers and leads, project managers, and he'll go to one of the operations managers or even the VP of operations and say, listen, I have this opportunity. I need to discuss it with you to see if it's feasible. And then they go through a series of meetings. I don't know how many, but several, too many probably. And he keeps on pushing until he gets the answer he wants. And if they convince me that it's a go, then I'll say, yeah, okay, let's go ahead forward with this. Then he'll get accounting involved. Accounting will do a background or credit check on the customer to see if their credit liability is good. If they pass the credit check, then that's another check mark for them, and I'm okay to do that. The last thing we do is preparation for a launch. IT has to get involved. IT has to load the customer information into our right routing system so that we have the proper addresses, the proper contact names, the methodology that they want to exchange orders. So some of our customers, believe it or not, they still enjoy calling somebody on the phone and placing the order on the phone. Some of our larger customers prefer to get on our website and put the orders in the on our website to download to us. Others want to do a FTP, file transfer protocol. Others like EDI. Now we're launching API right now with some of our customers. So we determine what methodology the customer wants to communicate with us on those things. IT will set that up. And then we start discussing with the customer about launch expectations, requirements, etc. And then we almost custom design the methodologies and processes that we use for that particular customer, and or down to the product level. And we have, like I mentioned, Carl Zeiss earlier, they have eye lasers, they have microscopes, they have, different type of imaging machines. Each one of those instruments requires a unique set of processes to make the delivery. And it's all Justin's responsibility to make sure that that all gets communicated from the customer back to operations, back to IT to do any unique developments for the activity. And then what he neglected to tell you also is the follow-up. Not only do we measure each shipment that we do, we send out a delivery checklist with every delivery, and we get instant quality feedback to see how the delivery went. If we have an error, we use our quality system to report the error and implement investigation on how to correct it from happening again. And then we plan, do, check, and then act, implement it, and then we go back and measure it to make sure that the fix went properly. He also goes, and it depends on the customer, sometimes quarterly, sometimes every half year, sometimes every year. We have what we call a QBR with the customer. It's called a quality business review. And we take all the statistics on all the activities that we had with that customer, and we sit down with them and report it. Now they can contest some of the results of that. And if they do, we discuss it and we go back and research and whatnot. But we also use that opportunity at the QBRs to look for additional opportunities with that customer for additional business, additional revenue, additional additional value add services that we can add to our menu that will make us stronger and better. We reward our salespeople with incentive based on he has to meet a base every month, but every dollar that he earns over that base, he gets a certain percentage of that revenue. And in typical sales environments, once you bring a customer on and you convert them, you get rewarded for it, and then that's it. Then that's added to your quota, and then you have to take that amount of revenue the next year and go beyond that. We don't do that. We keep him at the same base level, and we reward him for that revenue that comes in every month. And we reward that every month as opposed to waiting till the end of the year. So it's a little different, unique concept for monetary distributions for Justin. So that's the methodology that we kind of use. Every customer is unique and different, but our processes in doing that are the same. And I wanted to touch a little bit on your question about interviewing. This is a real life experience. And I know that that's what you guys want to hear about, real life experiences. When I was a little bit older than most of you, I'd worked professionally for 1 year down here in Dallas. And you could ask my wife, she was making more than I was, nine months out of the year as a teacher than I was working 12 months. And I said, I need to make more money than my wife. I can't have her be the breadwinner, right? Yeah. That was my motivation. And we wanted to raise a family, of course. So I said, yeah, I need to go find another job that pays more. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew what experience I had. And I was social and loved to be around people too, but I would never do sales. I couldn't do what Justin does. But I could talk to people, and I had no problem with that. So we had career fairs, not at the college because I was already graduated, but at hotels. And I went to, it was off of Mockingbird. I remember the hotel. I can't remember the name of it now, but they had a open career fair day. And I walked in there, and there were 1,000 people in there looking for jobs. And they probably had about maybe 50 companies that were represented. They had a little booth set up in front, and we stood in line. So somebody was like right from me to you, and they're interviewing with people at this booth, and everybody else was lined up right behind them. And I went up to the line where Abbott was interviewing for positions, and I'm listening to the conversation in front of me. And I pulled a couple things out of it. Number one was I heard them say to the guy interviewing was, don't sell yourself short. You can demand or ask for more than what you're asking for. And they're like, okay, cool. So I can go to the ceiling here. Okay, I'll do that. And then as they were collecting up their paperwork, we used to have to hand print or type out and go to the copy place to print out our resumes. They were getting everything straight, and I saw the one interviewer talk to the other interviewer. He says, yeah, what are we going to do for tonight for dinner? And he goes, I don't know, but you know what? I sure would like to get, like maybe a cowboy hat or cowboy boots or something like that. I get, okay, all right. I got that. Two things out of that just from standing from here to there. So I went up to them and I started interviewing. They asked me a lot of questions, and I didn't think I did that well, just to be honest with you. And they, I could kind of tell by body language. And we were finishing up our interview, and they said, well, thank you very much. And I said, oh, by the way, I said, I heard you guys talking earlier. I said, if you want to go somewhere out to eat, I said, depending on what you want, we have great Mexican food restaurants down here. I know you can't get those up in North Chicago because that's where they were from. I said, here's a couple of restaurants. And the reason why I'm giving you those is because I know that there's a Cavender's boot store right down the block from where these guys are. And then after you're done at Cavender's, if you want to try out your cowboy boots, or cowboy hat. I said, there's a great little bar called Confetti's downtown, and you'll have a great time if you go there. And they thanked me very much and shook my hand. And I said, well, I go, by the way, what's the salary expectations for this position? Well, what do you expect? And I heard the guy before, he said something like 20,000 a year. And I go, well, I'd like to have about $28,000 a year. And they looked at me and go, well, that's a little bit above the range, but we could probably get somewhere in the neighborhood. And I go, okay, well, when do I hear from you? And that's what, if you don't hear from us in the next couple of days, I would keep looking. That's what they said to me. I said, okay, well, no problem. I got a call the next day to go interview with the distribution manager the facility for abattoirs. It was off of Midway Road in Addison, and I did the interview. I thought I did good at that interview, and I'm waiting a week, and I found out that they didn't want to tell me no because they had somebody that they actually liked better, and they were going to offer the position to him, but he declined and took another position. I got the call, and I got the job, and the rest, as they say, it was history. But I'm telling you this because you could be prepared, you could have everything in order, you can be very confident in yourself, but you have to be sociable. When you meet with people, you need to treat them as you would want to be treated. I know you're nervous going in interviews and things like that, but find something that they can relate to. If you're in their office, look around their office. A lot of people have, things like a football helmet or a baseball helmet or a hockey puck or something like that, fishing or whatever, pictures of their kids, their grandkids, whatever the case may be. Take that and use that during your interview process, and always ask questions. Be prepared to go into an interview uh, with questions. Okay to ask about benefits. What are your health benefits like? What, you know, I'm looking for a long-term career. What's your retention rate for employees? Things like that. So you mix a little bit of social in with business and you get out what you want, but you also develop a relationship with that person that you're interviewing with. It's a lot easier go with the interview. So I just wanted to, that was one experience I wanted to share with you earlier. I share that usually with every presentation, but since I've been bringing in guests with me, I don't get into all the experiences like that. So with that, how are we doing on time? We're about finished up. So we are going to meet in the atrium, right? For anybody who wants to stick around. Does anybody have any quick questions right now? You want to get out of here and check off the mark?